So today I'm here with Neve,
Hello.
Phil,
Hello.
Lucy, and
Hi.
you might have noticed we're not actually at the Radio studios today.
We're not, are we?
We're not. We're out and about. We've been allowed out. We're actually at BLANCONERO, a cafe in Salford, and we basically thought we would use today as a way of talking about podcasts you might want to do out and about. We do a lot of stuff in the studio, but there's quite a trend at the moment of people going out and about and doing podcasts anywhere. Technology has got to a point now where you could literally do it at a cafe, do it at a park. So we thought we'd spend today talking about that bit. First of all, why should you do on-location podcasts? Obviously, it might seem like a good idea, but at times it might not. So we're going to run through some of the positives, some of the negatives a bit. And what is one? Well, I've already sort of gone through it. It's what we're doing right now.
Absolutely.
We're in a cafe.
Absolutely.
We're eating
little
Yes.
croissants do down.
Yes. And basically, it's just maybe you might get to a point where you think, I'm a bit bored of doing things in the studio, or maybe my podcast could be expanded by going out and doing things in public. So yeah, you might want to take some kit like we've got here today, which we'll go over a bit more later on, and just set up in somewhere like a cafe.
Are you looking for a podcast or radio show to appear on? Are you struggling to find a guest for your podcast or radio show? Let me introduce you to MatchMaker.fm. Simply create a profile, narrow your niche, and use the inbuilt messenger to contact potential partners. And the best part, it's free to sign up. So, let's find your match.
So Neve.
Hi.
Neve is
Hi
our
there.
representative for MatchMaker FM today.
That's what I do.
So what sort of positives and negatives can you think of for on-location shooting?
Well, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going off the top of my head. I have brought my phone, but when you're
We've
being
all got them.
portable, okay, when you're being portable and you're coming to a location outside your studio, you can do that. So don't mind me, just going to refer to some notes. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of good reasons as to why you should do it. It's a great idea, like you say, to keep your podcast kind of fresh. Something a little bit new, something a little bit different, you know. And it adds a real sense of personality to your podcast. You know, if you've got the confidence to do it, why not do it, sort of thing. But again, I understand it's completely different from individual to individual. Depends the topic of your podcast. But if it's something chatty, why not break it down? Have it a bit casual, a bit social like this.
It's more natural
you know,
almost.
Whack a little croissant out. Why
Have a
not?
bite.
You might as well.
Yeah, there is a bit of pressure, kind of like you're about to start recording, and you're all in a bit of a professional sort of environment where you're at a studio, or you've, being out in the open, you are, I guess, kind of forced to kind of just jump straight into it, and in a social
you can
environment.
feel a bit more at ease.
Yeah,
in a more of a natural setting for yourself.
Yeah,
Yes.
the task we've got at hand is just to chat nicely about tips and stuff, and I think being in this friendly social environment kind of absolutely helps with that.
Oh, completely. And like the location, like it can be sort of a character in itself.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it kind of adds to your hosting.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the drunks outside, you've got the
Yeah,
dogs
well,
wailing. Yeah,
Not right now.
It's like
We're not just surrounded by drunks.
It's 11 a.m.
I mean, like we put kind of here in the notes, but like for example, if you're producing like a drama podcast, like you're doing like a true crime, so if you had like a mixture of studio and like on location stuff as well, it could be like really effective to expand the story. You could have some background screams, like you say. You could build that atmosphere. You could even go to like some like misty, creepy moor or something. You know, you could have a ghost in the background saying something. You know what I mean? So
If you're doing
it can
video
add.
as well, which we
Yeah.
encourage, then
Yes.
that's great. It
Yes.
all adds to that setting.
Yeah, completely. Like different sounds and like ambiences and stuff, they can sort of transport the listener to a different place. You are in a different place to outside your studio. But you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, we also kind of thought about, you know, sometimes on location, it might make more sense as like a permanent setting. For example, if you've got a nature podcast, it might make more sense to do it at the bottom of your garden. Maybe you've got a little forest studio, you know, something like that might actually work better with the tone of your podcast.
As long as it's not raining.
Well, no, obviously, you know, it might be a bit difficult in England, but you know, a nice greenhouse, perhaps. You know, I'm not policing the location. It's just a suggestion.
Yeah.
And this one does involve a little bit of confidence, but if you've got the confidence, you might as well. You could involve that got one there. You could involve the general public by asking them questions. Just go on up, because I see this content a lot, particularly on like TikTok, YouTube, etc., like Vox Pops. But yeah, I mean, like overall as well, don't worry about the sound quality. And I feel like as well, you don't have to worry in general. I think some people with podcasts, they worry like, have I got like studio quality sound here? Is it sounding
That's what's
good?
expected when you're in that setting.
Completely, but in this setting, it's not so much.
No.
So you don't have to worry about that, because your audiences are going to understand that you're doing it in public. There might be some audio sacrifices, so you can relax a little bit. You don't have to worry too much.
I guess kind of like on the other side of that, you still don't want to make that an excuse to not think about the quality and stuff, because like fair enough. As you mentioned, you're doing a nature walk. For example, like a good example, one of our stations on radio.com, Fellfoot Radio, they do a lot of their programs are about nature walks around Durham. So a lot of their pre-recorded programming is just two people walking the grounds, having a chat about nature, what they've seen and stuff. And yeah, that's probably got a couple of clip-on mics, or even if they're just using phones and stuff. But if there's an opportunity for you to still use good quality and stuff, absolutely. And it's clear that they do. It still could be pretty primitive equipment, but it still sounds really, really good, and you still get the beautiful sort of nuances of the environment.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of like you say, if you don't have access to like ridiculous expensive equipment or whatever, you can use this to your advantage a little bit. But again, like you say, you don't need expensive equipment to have good audio quality. I'm just saying you don't have to worry about having like 1,000 mics and like a really fancy setup. If you're doing it in the street,
There is plenty of gear, plenty of microphones, etc., that are actually designed for broadcasting outside, and a lot of them won't break the bank as well. So
completely.
So why shouldn't you film outside, out and about, in a cafe? What are the negatives?
I mean, I feel like the biggest one is probably just like, if you're doing it, it has to make sense. Don't just do it for the sake of it, you know what I mean? Because it might take your listener out of it, particularly if it's just like randomly, you know what I mean? Like if you've done all of it in a studio and then one episode you're in the street and you're not explaining why you're in the street, you're just straight up in the street, they might think you've been evicted from your studio. But yeah, I feel like
listeners get used to sound qualities as well. So if you start with a sort of reduced sound quality because you're always outside, people are more accepting of that. Whereas if you're in a studio the whole time and suddenly you're outside and it sounds worse, people are going to get
you don't want to alienate your audience in any way. And it's like if you're doing like a serious like political podcast or something, you don't really want to be recording it in your Mackies, like your local Mackies one day. It's a bit random, it's a bit jarring, you know what I mean? It changes the tone, and then presumably next episode you'll be back to the original tone. So it's not great for continuity. So I feel like you should just justify it, and if you can't justify it, then just don't do it. There's got to be a reason. There's got to be context behind it.
Don't do it for the sake of it.
No, and obviously there's a lot of undertaking as well that it can be expensive. You've got to consider what location you go into. You might need a permit to record there, for example, and as well you're going to be hauling around like presumably at least a little bit of equipment. Travel costs, etc., depends how many people are involved. There's a lot of things involved in the expenses side of things, so it might actually be cheaper just to stick to if you have a little home studio or something like that, then it just depends on your budget. But I feel like as well another big one is maybe that you can't guarantee that it's going to be great.
No.
Even with like the best mic ever, if I go and do it next to like Niagara Falls, it's probably not going to sound great. It's probably going to sound like because obviously. So
what's it going to sound like again? Can we just have that again?
Sort of like a.
That sounds lovely.
It would be relaxing. It would be very relaxing. For a sleep podcast.
Contact Neve for all your sound effects.
But obviously, if you feel like you need control over your sound, then I would say it's probably not the best to do it outside. It depends if you're finicky about this kind of thing.
I think for anything like that, you definitely. I mean, I'll touch on this sort of later, but you definitely need to do some form of trial run because using the incredibly ambitious but all the means possible way of example of doing a podcast at Niagara Falls.
Some have,
it sounds magical.
Yes.
But ideally, you want to just give it a little test first before you just absolutely just jump in and commit.
Yeah, and not to mention like kind of on that, let's say we were recording like in the great wide open. We're in the hills. We trekked somewhere to do it. Like, obviously, remember you're taking portable equipment that needs to be like charged up. There's a lot that could go wrong. You could get up there, your battery could be gone on like your camera, your recording equipment, etc. You know, you need to make sure that you've got all exactly the right equipment before you go off and do something ambitious like that, you know what I mean? At the very least, if you're starting out doing it outside, I'd say don't stray too far from your main studio, just so you can like run back and get something.
I guess even if you had to fall back onto a plan B, I guess you could still make plan B like a novelty, like, hey, we took all our equipment to the top of this mountain to go and record a show, but it just wasn't working. We're recording on our phones instead. You know, you've given your audience context, but there's something kind of wild about it. You know, you're just recording a podcast at the top of a mountain from a phone. It's not going to sound as good as it would have originally done, but there's a context and novelty behind how this episode now sounds.
And plenty of podcasts combine recording in a studio with also recording on location or so to help with the storytelling or to kind of, you know, paint the picture.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It's just, like we said before, you know, it's just about that kind of continuity, making your audience aware of, you know, this week we're going to be doing this you know, etc. Just set them up for the tone. But you know what, Rowan, I think I've done enough yapping.
You've done enough.
I'm parched.
So that's everything we need to know, really, about on-location podcasting, positives, negatives. Obviously, it's not for everyone, so do have a think about that. Really think about whether or not it's going to fit the tone and the style of your podcast. But if you're unsure and you want a few examples, don't worry. We've got you sorted. Because this isn't really anything new. This is kind of something that's been around for a long time. I think for a while it was kind of like a quirk because the technology wasn't really there. So people were like, oh, I'm doing a podcast outside. Look at me. Ooh. But nowadays it's kind of like we say, it's kind of something you can do. The technology is advanced. We'll go on to the Mono later, which we're using to record in this cafe. But yeah, Lucy, as our representative for Q Podcasts, another brand within the Broadcast.co family, have you got any like good examples for us?
Oh yeah. So Q have partnered up with a few different kind of people and organisations to do kind of a mix of on-location podcasting.
Yeah.
Like one of the really notable ones is the Deep Roots podcast, and that's hosted by Damien Brown, who's former Irish professional rugby player turned adventurer. And Damien basically puts himself through the ringer in the name of self-realisation. And he does this by doing loads of like crazy physical feats in like the natural world, including like sailing across the Atlantic and climbing Mount Everest. Like, if it sounds crazy to little home birds like me, then he's done it essentially, and that's what Atlantic Ocean, etc. So that really helps bring you there with him. And it's like you know, he's talking about his struggles, the obstacles he's facing, the really great moments. So you're really there on the journey with him, which is like such a great example of how on-location podcasting really works.
And I guess that's a good example of how you physically couldn't do that podcast without doing on-location stuff. If that was all in a studio, it wouldn't be half.
It's just like, you know, can you imagine someone who's, you know, doing a TV documentary and they're talking about climbing up Mount Everest, but all the footage was just a shot of them in a studio talking about it.
Exactly.
You're not in that environment where you know, so that's why context is so important. You know, if it absolutely further illustrates and accentuates what your podcast is about, then you've got to go out and do it.
Yeah, so another podcast we partnered up with Halifax, the bank, to do a 5-part series basically on the process of buying your first home. And to the on-location aspect of this was that we essentially went into a bank and converted it into a podcast studio and shot it all from there, just to basically create like the right atmosphere for the podcast, let everyone know this is money talks, we're in a bank.
Hear the coins studio. In the background.
The clink clink, trust this bank. So yes, that's another one that we did.
Yes, it is worth saying though, is I know you think, you know, like some of these brands and things, you know, Halifax, for example, you know, they're a business, they've got money to spend converting anything into a studio. It's not strictly true. You know, like to get started, you really don't need much, but it just shows you that, you know, we are a bank and we want to make a podcast related around banking. It makes sense to use it in that same location, and it still only requires a bit of equipment. Soundproofing isn't always necessary for things like that. Again, it just adds to the whole appeal, the whole flavour of the podcast. So
I think it really reinforces a brand as well. Like if you're a podcast, again, for like a brand or a company or whatever, it really kind of reinforces like who you are and how you want to come across, depending on the setting, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like again, bank. Money, lots of money.
I'm sure there's podcasts out there about cars, and they record it
in a car.
In a car.
Yeah, completely.
Anything can become a studio. It really doesn't require as much as you
brand,
think.
Yeah, completely.
Didn't Q go to the Tech Open Air Festival and do some stuff there?
Yeah, so Q attended the Tech Open Air Festival, and they basically set up a podcast booth at the festival.
Yes.
And so different attendees and speakers could kind of come in and could kind of record like little mini podcasts or so.
Yeah.
It's quite like an engaging way to get like lots of different people from different fields or so, because obviously podcasting, if there's a subject out there, there's probably a podcast out there as well. And it's such like an engaging medium that in whatever industry, people like to listen to podcasts about that.
Yeah.
So it's a really great way to engage lots of different people from different fields and stuff with podcasting, and get like their various expertise and messages out there.
Yeah.
So that's
was that something that was converted into a studio?
They built a studio.
Well, I know it kind of defeats the point we were just talking about, but again, that was something that was purpose built and stuff. But again, you can just turn anything into.
You could cobble together a cupboard, couldn't you? Really?
Yeah.
You could do it in a car, like you say. Cars are great for soundproofing.
Yeah.
We've used many a car for audio in the past.
You've seen those videos of
soft seating.
Yeah.
You're not going to get much
Yes.
reverb.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's like, you've seen those videos of crash test dummies and stuff. The sound.
Feel deep for sound effects as well.
Some good acoustics on the crunch of that stress test dummy. So great recording
at the Tech
environment.
Open Air Festival, they completely built from scratch a little podcast studio or so for the guests and attendees, speakers. Guests and attendees are the same thing. For the speakers and guests come in and get to use it, and
Q are available for anyone. You can get in contact with Q now, and then they'll come and do an on-location podcast for you. You don't even need to prepare for it yourself. You can do it all
Exactly.
through Q.
If it all seems like, I don't know what I'm doing here, then here at Q, we can literally just handle it all for you or so, And you'll be really surprised at where you can, as we're hopefully demonstrating, you can actually record a podcast. So if you've got an idea, and you think, even if it's a bit out there or so, it's worth getting in touch, and so we can
you don't
say,
have the kit or anything.
Yeah, we've got all the gear, we've got all the kit or so.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're all big audio nerds, so if you have a pitch and an idea, like how I want to do this in here about this, and so it's like, well, great, well, we know exactly the right bit of kit or the procedure or the way to do that.
We like to make things happen, don't we?
Yeah.
When you've got a crazy idea, we like to be like, we can make this happen, we can bring it into reality.
So sort of off that,
Yeah.
I guess one of the worst things you can do when you want to do an on-location shoot is not prepare properly, not know what you're doing. And so you could set up at a cafe, you could organise it with the owners, you could get some guests involved, and you can take some kit, and then you don't really know what you're doing, and you've not planned properly in advance, so it's kind of like a write-off. So, Phil, as a presenter yourself, and you've done a fair bit out and about on location, what exactly should people plan for when they want to do an on-location podcast?
I guess really one of the key things, I guess with any podcast or radio program, applies more, obviously, if you are doing something a bit out of the ordinary, but, it's just to prepare and, create some form of scripting. Now, it doesn't mean you have to script every single word you're going to say, unless, it's a storytelling or it's an investigative or a documentary series, of course, then that's a bit more key, but you just kind of want to have some form of storyboard, running order sort of thing for it. Particularly if you are going out and about, I guess arguably we didn't need to do that recording here today because it's a place that you frequent, Rowan, so you know what it's kind of like and stuff. But if you were scouting a location, or you were just, right, let's just pack up and go and record up a mountain or something like that, you still need to do some form of recce to see what the environment's like. So you might need to prepare stuff in your production, your scripting, things just to acknowledge kind of things that might happen, bad weather and stuff. So it's so having some form of script will definitely take a lot of stress away from you, because it doesn't matter if it's wanging it down with rain or
wanging it down with rain. Wow, I've never heard that before.
It's a term I don't use that much outside my household, so I don't know if it spreads outside of the Dean
I'm
household.
I'm going to start using it. I like
it's quite
it.
a common word.
It's kind of like good practice anyway, isn't it? For
Yeah,
any
of
podcast.
Stops you waffling and deviating.
Yeah, you want to
talking
sort of have
about
a structure.
wanging.
Yeah,
It definitely
exactly.
keeps you, focused, and you can always come back to it, can't you? If you do deviate, you can come back to a bit of a
100%.
framework.
Someone actually asked me this week about, do I need to script things I'm going to do for like radio links, introducing music, if you're doing a radio show outside. And no, but you still want to kind of bullet point any points, like you might want to acknowledge an event you're at, maybe that's the reason why you're on location, or a competition you're running, or you just want to discuss something. So again, it doesn't need to be a script, a word for word thing. It just needs to be something that prompts you. So it doesn't matter what's happening around you, if you're outside especially. You're confident in your ability.
You don't want to forget some crucial bit and then after you've recorded it realise.
Yeah.
I guess you could probably do like a trial run as well, could you?
Trial runs are essentially, is because, particularly if it's somewhere that you've never been before. I mentioned about recce. If you are going to go and look for a location to go at, you'll want to make sure that not quite health and safety, of course, that should be something to consider, but you need to make sure that, yes, is the sound going to be okay? Are we definitely going to be able to attend this location at this date to do it? Are these sort of seating position available, for example? So do some sort of trial run just to make sure that there's no limitations to what you've got, whether it's, the equipment that you have, Neve mentioned earlier, you might want to record somewhere on location, in the middle of an open field, talking about a nature trail. The last thing you want to happen is that, for some reason I don't have signal perhaps that requires for this particular device to use, because there are some equipment that rely being connected to something, battery dying and stuff. So just have a trial run to make sure that, yes, this crazy ambitious idea I have is actually going to work.
I think it's a good shout as well, particularly if you've got a guest, because obviously you want to respect your guest's time. You don't want to haul them off a mountain and then be like,
no,
sorry guys, forgot the camera. So just have to go back down and back up again.
Things like, is this place easy to find, is easy to get to? If you've got a guest who's taking their time out, perhaps from a busy schedule, and it was difficult to get to, and you didn't pre-warn them that there's a bit of confusion over what street you're going at or what car park you're meeting at and stuff. So even just from an admin perspective, trial runs are quite important.
And it's sometimes easier to pitch to guests if you can say, we're going to do this around the corner from your office, or somewhere that's really convenient to you.
Work it around
you're going for a really big hitter guest or so. Try and make it as easy as possible for them, and you're definitely more likely to get them on board.
Definitely,
But so just do a trial run of all your kit as well. You don't necessarily need to go on location to do that. Just test to make sure everything is working accordingly. I know when I podcast, I'm still podcasting in my own home, but I always like to record something for a few minutes, stop it, listen back to it.
100%.
Everything sounded right. Let's start again and do it for real. So
on that, what kind of kit would you suggest people use when they're out and about? Because obviously, like you say, at home you're going to have probably a boom arm with a mic, maybe a broadcaster, a mix or something like that. You don't necessarily want to take all that with you. You might not even be able to power all of that. So what should you take?
So anything that is just as portable as ever. We say about at radio.co, that you can start your own 24-hour global radio station using nothing but your laptop and an internet connection and maybe a USB microphone. That might be all you need. If you're going to a location that's inside with tables and chairs like where we're here, then that might be absolutely all you need. You've got a microphone that with a wide sort of pattern that is able to capture two people closely sat together. Perfect. We've quite the liberty here of having this Nomono device, which again we're going to be talking about a little bit later, that is kind of built around this environment where you can just pop this little dehumidifier looking device in the middle of a table and just go, right, we're now recording a full-on discussion with ease. Of course, that's on the absolute far end of the scale in terms of affordability, but there are devices, again, not the cheapest thing in the market, but we've had a device called the Zoom equivalent Zoom
Yes.
H6, Zoom H8.
Yeah.
But we've tested those, and the way they work is it's kind of almost like an audio rig. It's like, you know, a portable thing. You can use it just to record like a, you know, an interviewer's microphone. But you can also use it to then plug all your devices in, or XLR microphones, live instruments coming in. And all it is just this little thing like here, pop it down, and that could power your entire radio studio or the podcast environment.
It's like a mini roadcaster, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
like
in a way, yeah.
Roadcaster.
Yeah, and they're good for portable microphones, so you
Yeah.
could go out on location, literally just record it, do interviews, or again broadcast live from a scene somewhere and stop it. But you really don't need to go mad when it comes to beginning, you know, starting out. But I think there needs to be more consideration if you are going out and about. But it ultimately depends on the environment you're finding yourself. Is it something I could just plonk my laptop down and a microphone, or is it something where I need to use, you know, a lapel microphone like what we've got here, like Rode? I forget what Rode series.
They got the wireless Go's, the wireless Go 2s, the wireless Mi's. All great for stuff like if you're doing interviews or vox pipes, like you said.
Yeah, and then they're particularly handy because lapel mics. Because again, if you know, I was record with, you know, boom arms and mic stands and microphones, and you feel a bit more. It's a bit more professional feel, but you're a bit more rigid, upright, and chatting. Whereas here, you know, we are, because we know the microphone is right here and it's kind of following us wherever we go.
Yeah.
It is a bit more of a relaxed way of broadcasting.
And
so.
I think the good thing with all this equipment as well is that we've reviewed like a lot of it, haven't we? So if you go on if you go on radio.co's YouTube channel or blog or whatever, and you're not really sure about a certain piece of equipment, there's a good chance that, you know, these guys might have had a chat about it. I might have had a poke at it, you know.
Yeah.
And we're very honest, I would say. We're very honest, yeah.
Speaking of honesty, so going off what you just talked about, wouldn't it be great if there was a mixture of all of those things, like a lav mic, like a field recorder, all those things in one? Great news, because we're going to start talking about the Nomono Sound Capsule, which we've been using throughout this whole recording. Using these little mics here, you might have noticed them flashing away. So first of all, Nomono is a brand new brand. Brand new brand.
Brand squared.
From based in Norway. So you'll be forgiven if you've never heard of them before.
What, I've heard of Norway before.
Norway. What's Norway?
It's really underground. You wouldn't have heard of it.
But yeah, essentially, the Nomono Sound Capsule, which we have in front of us here, is sort of like an all-in-one recording device that is especially good for on-location shooting, which is why we've chosen to use it today. And we thought we would just do like a normal review like we usually do in the studio, but it's not really what it's for. So we thought, why not go out and about? We've chosen to come to the brilliant BLANCONERO cafe and just do some sort of general chat in a sort of busy, loud environment. And we've had quite a lot of loud noises in the background throughout this recording, and we've got music playing. And I guess we don't know currently how it's held up.
Hopefully it's good.
Hopefully it's held up pretty well. So like, what is it? Well, essentially, like I said before, it's 4 lav mics, which you can attach on using magnets, or there's clips. I'll play some sort of footage over this so you can get a better idea of it. But they transmit to this little cube here. And this is great because it means you don't need to take heaps and heaps of equipment with you. You don't even need to take a laptop with you. You can literally just take this package and press record, and boom, it starts recording. There is technically 12 tracks of audio being recorded right now. So we've got 4 on each of us here recording our voices, but there's actually 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. So 8 more mics on the actual recording unit itself, recording the ambience of where you are. And this is brilliant because it means you can really sort of dive in and edit the sound how you want. The lav mics are also pretty good. They are, if I just look at the specs quickly, they're 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz of frequency response, and they're omnidirectional as well. So it's not too tied down to just your voice. It's going to capture a bit of what's around you. But the technology within the Nomono Sound Capsule should help separate the voice from the background noise, which is obviously what you want in a setting like
I
this.
guess obviously the point of this sort of microphone setup is to capture conversations and podcasts. So it
Yes.
makes sense that
Yeah.
it's also getting people.
You
on
do want a
either
little
side.
bit of background most,
Yeah.
because otherwise, why
What's
would
the
you
point?
not just
Yeah,
do it in a
100%.
studio?
Yeah.
Completely.
So you're going to get 10 hours of battery life on the unit itself, 20 hours per lav. But then something I've not spoken about yet is this little doodah here. And this is the actual sound capsule unit itself. And what you do is click that open. And there's slots for all 4 mics and the main unit. And they all go in there and charge. And this in itself has 15 hours of battery life. So if you're out and about and you've used up the 10 hours on that and you've used 10 hours on here, you can put everything back into the unit and it charges it without having to go back home and maybe plug it in. There's 15 hours on there of extra battery, essentially, which is great. And obviously that also helps if, say, your recording is a bit longer than you were expecting, or you need to go somewhere else and you don't have time to charge. Obviously that is ideal. One thing I will say on the charging, in all honesty, is it takes a while. I was talking to you, Lucy, earlier about how I charged it for about 6 hours in the office with everything inside, and it only got and charged it from when I got home overnight. So in total, I probably did about 14 hours of charge. And even then, it was only just like at the sort of peak charge on the actual unit. And one of the labs was struggling to charge for some reason. So it's something to factor in. Because there's so much going on here, there's so much to charge.
Yeah.
It's going to take a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's expected considering how much power and what it's capable
Yes.
of. But yeah, it's definitely not something where if you're unprepared, you can just
Yeah.
pick it up and go and
Yeah,
record. It has to be
yeah.
something that's been planned.
Yes.
So you know everything's recorded for you just to go.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, from a design perspective, it's very portable. It's
is.
not too big.
It's not
quite
too
lightweight.
heavy,
And
yeah.
it's really cute. I think it's really cute. It looks like a cute little handbag. And I like
Can you
it.
carry that
And I
around
like
town?
these as well. Mine's pink. So, yeah, it's very nice. Yeah, I like it.
On the actual unit itself, you do have a little user interface. It's not touchscreen, but there are buttons included, obviously. Currently, the unit itself doesn't have that much functionality. I can't actually find anything that these buttons currently do, aside from assuming there's work in progress going on. And if you go on the
Firmware.
Nomono website, it does say that the software is all in beta. So expect like more interesting things to come from
Yeah,
that.
it's definitely looking. It's a piece of kit looking towards the future,
Yes,
you know. And I guess
100%.
a lot of it, because it is their brand new company, brand new kind of innovative products. Then yeah, they're going to be building the future based on
Yeah.
people's experiences with it. Yeah,
And we
so-
have seen with it is quite typical for audio brands when they release gear that can have updates. Then they will basically take on feedback of people that have
yeah,
used it
100%.
and then
Yeah.
incorporate that into future firmware
Yes.
Yeah.
updates. So
It's
yeah,
very early
we'll,
days.
We'll be excited to see what happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if Nintendo can release a patch that makes Bluetooth suddenly a thing on your Switch
After 4 years.
after 4 years, then the future's bright
Yes.
for the Nomono.
Yeah, definitely. So you might be wondering how do you get the files off it? There's no SD card included, or SD card slot, I should say. The way it works is, so currently we're recording with our Wi-Fi, and the audio is going onto the main unit, and I think you get something like 15 hours of audio, like files, I guess, on there. And then as soon as you go back home or you go somewhere with Wi-Fi, it automatically uploads that to the cloud service that Nomono offers. And you have 30 days to go on there, get that audio, and do what you like with it. There's also an option for a subscription service, and you get 12 months of this free of charge when you buy one of the devices.
That's a great price.
Yeah, that's a great price. And after that, you do need to start paying, and I think there's a pro plan and there's 2 plans essentially, and it's quite good, to be fair. Like, I've been on the desktop version, and there's currently a service that's in beta that lets you edit the footage, the audio footage directly from their software, so you don't even need to like take it off and use like Audacity or whatever you use to edit your audio. But yeah, like I say, you will need to pay for that after 12 months, and that is also in beta. But you can use that straight away, and you can even get people to you can send the file, share the link, people can come in and write notes on what they think. So it is pretty cool. There is also a phone app, but that is very basic. I tried it out yesterday. All you can essentially do is press record and stop recording with that currently.
So it's not like you could use the phone as like someone could call in. Then again, it wouldn't be a way to
No,
stuff
it's literally, it's just a way of pressing record. But it works, it's very functional, so that's cool.
A question for everyone, but I guess mainly directed to you, Rome. Someone who is always manning our sound equipment and video equipment and things when we're doing things. Does the lack of any sort of like SD slot or put any sort of concern or worry for you?
Yes, 100%. That was the first thing I thought when I saw. But one thing that actually sort of put that at ease is that if, say, one of the labs loses connection to the main unit, Nomono claim that you get 44 minutes of lossless audio that will save directly onto the lab and then before reconnects. So hopefully you wouldn't go 44 minutes without that, because you're hopefully going to have them all in the same area. But if, say, that happens, there's 44 minutes of audio that will be saved. And I mean, I've not heard of that before. I think that's pretty impressive. Obviously, like Rhodes labs have the option to save stuff onto the labs themselves if that happens. But I've never seen it that after 44 minutes, it will go back onto the unit. That's pretty clever stuff.
And do we know how we would know when a mic would disconnect?
Yeah, so on the screen itself, you'll see if one's disconnected. So they're all in red at the moment, which means they're all recording.
Handy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, a bit of colour coordination, but that's good because I know, we're not saying someone has to keep their eye on it, but those lights are pretty striking.
Yes.
So it should
Glance over there and
yeah.
clock within 44 minutes, and you should be fine.
One thing you notice straight away though is that there isn't any. You can't actually see the audio. You can't see
you can't see
audio
the gain
playing or if it's cut out or anything like that, which is something that hopefully will come in the future. Because that would be obviously handy to see.
It'd be interesting to know actually if the mics adjust their gain based on the loudness of someone's voice.
Yes, yeah. I believe they do.
Yeah.
And also on their sort of desktop cloud service, you can just click a button that says enhance.
Nice.
And I don't know if it uses AI or how it works, but it essentially just cleans up the audio straight away.
Audio processing for you.
Yeah, basically.
Nice.
So that is basically what it is. We've obviously used it today. We're not entirely sure how it's worked out, but I've done a bit of testing before today. So far, I'm pretty impressed with it. It seems pretty cool. Obviously, it's gonna fill a niche because there's nothing quite like this yet.
Yeah, it's a trend that, again, every man and his dog's doing a podcast, but not every brand is thinking of the way, well, how can we just make podcasting not easier? It's what a lot of companies are doing, but just portable, just pop this in the middle of a room and just kind of go.
Yeah. And I mean, my main qualm with it is nothing to do with the technical side. Obviously, there's a few things we'd like to be added, but that'll all come in time, hopefully. The main issue I have is the price, something I've avoided so far. Obviously, like I say, you get subscription costs as well, but to just buy the capsule itself, you're looking at about £2,500, which is not cheap. And when you think about who this could be for, my first thing would be this is brilliant for newbies. It's so simple.
People starting up, completely.
You just press record and you're off. But for £2,500, it's not really within the price range of
it's
someone
not.
just starting out.
But like you say, I mean, in future, obviously, with additions to the firmware and stuff, maybe it will become more affordable. Maybe it's just because at the moment they're working stuff out as well. It's just sort of a prototype in a way.
Could it be in a way that if you spend, £2,500 on it now, you're essentially testing it out for people in a year or two's time who might buy either another version of it or it's a cheaper version of anything. So do you feel like if you were to buy this out of your own pocket, you are, again, is this value right now, to get it right now, is it something that you feel is needed?
And I mean, so who's it for? Well, I'd say, one, people that can afford it. I know that's pretty obvious, but if you can afford this, go for it. It's great.
Yes, yeah.
If you can't afford it, don't
worry about
don't like
it. Yeah.
I don't know, but I don't
It's not the end all or be all.
No,
is it?
don't take out a loan to
But
get it.
if you're a bigger company, and particularly, if you've got for example, a social media team, a marketing team, a podcasting team, then absolutely, why not? It's really useful equipment.
Some companies, brands, businesses might be paying for the simplicity of the fact that even if you've never done any sort of audio recording before, you can probably figure this out really quickly.
Get to grips with it, completely. Yeah.
Someone like a company like Q Podcasts, I mean, who are working with external clients and obviously need to get that equipment to them. This is so simple. I could definitely see Q using this quite a lot.
You're absolutely paying for the
unimposing, isn't it? As well, it doesn't. You don't necessarily look at this and freak out like, how the hell am I going to set up all these wires and these cables?
It's a nice experience as well. Like opening it up for the first time,
That's
it all turns
when
on.
When you open it up, I was like, oh.
No, there's no on button. It just sort of comes on when you lift the lid. All of that is really nice.
It's very nice.
It is a shame we don't get any space age steam, like when Darth Vader's helmet comes off, we don't get any of that.
Yeah, completely.
And I guess time will tell if it's the quality that's going to last or so as well. So if it lasts like several years and stuff, it might actually be a decent investment for some
definitely
podcasters.
It's like we said, I mean, if it gets more affordable in the future, then it will be more accessible to more people. At the moment, maybe like you say, like podcasting agencies and stuff might find this a useful tool, but beyond that, I don't know whether it's a beginner's.
No.
Sadly.
No.
It could be.
Not yet.
But just don't. I wouldn't advise going dropping $2,000 on something that you're not 100%.
No.
In general, anything, just financial advice.
I guess the best comparison would be something like when the iPhone came out. That was quite expensive at the time. But nowadays, there's all obviously.
It's still not great, but it's better. And
there's
most
cheaper
people
iPhones.
have one.
And there's cheaper, there's an Android alternative that's like an iPhone. So if you wait a bit, usually technology will become more affordable.
Yeah, there could be even the option where you can buy this without the lav mics. Maybe it is that you pop that in the middle of your room and it's just recording the side mics and things.
Yeah. Nomono, if you're listening, take all of this on board. That's pretty much it for today's special podcast. I hope you enjoyed this. We've never done anything like this before. Maybe we'll do it again.
Hope so.
Please let us know down in the comments wherever you're watching.
Just comment either no mono or yes mono.
Yes. I like it. Before we go, I just want to give a huge shout out to where we've been filming this podcast, BLANCONERO in Salford. Brilliant cafe.
Had a delicious chai latte.
We've had a great time.
Stuck in.
I've not even started my croissant
I've been eyeing up
yet.
my croissant.
I regret eating mine on screen, to be honest. I'm hoping this gets cut.
But it tasted good.
It does taste really nice, but I don't know why I started eating it on screen.
I hope we get to do some future because
come back.
If you want to have croissants on cameras.
But if you want to do what we've done and film a podcast here, then get in touch with them. We'll put links down below and on all of our social and stuff, so you can find that. But that's pretty much everything. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
See ya.